You're listening to the Integrative Health Simplified podcast with Kari, Coody, pharmacist turned integrative health practitioner. Here we talk all things straightforward and honest when it comes to holistic health and simplifying your best steps forward while eliminating all the gimmicks and confusion. Leave the overwhelm at the door and get ready for impactful action steps that get to the real root of your issue and actually move the needle in your health. Let's dive into the show. Hey there, and welcome back into Integrative Health Simplified podcast. I'm your host, Kari, and I'm excited to be back for episode 2. But before we jump into this topic that we have today, I just wanted to clarify something that might be a little different than other podcasts. So I decided to do seasons and series within those seasons to be able to talk about various broad, like overarching topics, and also as a way to be able to refer people back to different banks of topics as the podcast progresses. I'm not going anywhere. This is going to be a long-standing thing, Lord willing. And so as I'm starting off season 1, I wanted to do a little series just on simple swaps for your regular routine that can really make a big difference when you think about your overall health. And so in episode 1, we talked about just a simple swap that you can make, just simply eating enough to have better energy. And so in this next episode, which is today's, I'm going to talk about a simple swap that you can make, which is not drinking coffee on an empty stomach. Seems like a small thing, but it's actually a really big thing if you are consuming your coffee before you eat something in the morning. So I'm going to take a few minutes to just hopefully give you some information on why that might not be the best idea. But of course, everybody's individualized and this is your decision to make. However, I want you to have the knowledge of what is actually happening in your body when you consume coffee on an empty stomach. But before we get into that, I just wanted to share a personal story that I have around this topic. And so as with a lot of these topics, if I'm talking about them, I have more than not tried some of these things. So try different, like really, when I tell you I have tried so many diets and so many protocols and different things like hacks, all that stuff I have. So this is not an exception. So I think it was about 5 years ago, I had just left the pharmacy full time and had came home and was, I was trying to get, kind of acclimated to working from home, working more so for myself, not necessarily having someone tell me what to do all day. And so whenever, back then it was kind of all the rage was this bulletproof coffee and intermittent fasting. And so when it touted, more focus, I was like, yes, please give me more focus. I am definitely doing this. And so, of course, they had all the health benefits that were related to it. And I was like, this is totally a win-win. So I'm going to skip breakfast and I'm going to drink my bulletproof coffee. And mind you, I get that the bulletproof coffee, it had butter and it had coconut oil. So it might have blunted some of the effects that I'm going to share with you. However, what I found was that for the first month and a half or so, it was great. I had so much energy. I had so much focus. I'm like, this is awesome. I'm going to keep doing this. This is amazing. But after about a month and a half, 2 months, I started having the worst afternoon crashes. And that was right when I would go get my kids. And so it's kind of like this perfect storm of where I was like, oh my gosh, I have zero patience and I just want to take a nap. And my kids are like excited to see me and like wanted to play. So you can see how this wasn't ideal at all. And so it took me a little bit to see the correlation here, right? But once I did, I was like, okay, I have got to go back to eating breakfast and drinking coffee with my breakfast. And once I did that, it was like a light switch. I had energy back. And the thing is, I still had focus. I didn't necessarily need to be starving myself and drinking coffee on an empty stomach to have focus, right? And so I just share that to say, if you're like, is she talking about things that she hasn't experienced and hasn't, failed at? Oh my gosh, I failed so many times from so many things and learned so much. That's why I'm sharing with you. So hopefully you don't have to go through that trial and error. But on to the episode, I just wanted to share that personal story with you guys. So in the morning, whenever we wake up, within the first 20 or 30 minutes that we wake, our body is trying to figure out how it's going to get its energy, right? whenever we wake up and we go about our normal day, hopefully the first, 20 to 30 minutes is sort of slower. We're not really exerting a lot of energy, but our body is probably thinking, okay, I only have a little bit of energy stores from the night before, right? I'm going to need more energy as you start going throughout your day. And so our body's preferred source of energy is food. However, it can make energy without having fuel in the form of food. But that whole process that it has to go through to make energy that it needs, that also takes some stress hormones, and things like cortisol and adrenaline are pushed into your system, and that starts the process of your body making its own energy. But to do that, obviously it needs stress hormones, which we don't really want more of, especially because we probably already have enough of those as it is. We don't want even more of those. And so many times with clients, I'm trying to get them out of that stress hormone cycle that they're in so that their body can start to heal. And so this is a really big no to just enter this cycle just because you're not giving it food. So that whole process starts, and really, okay, it needs the stress hormones, but it also has to break down its own tissue to create energy, which is not a great idea. So that's kind of what happens if you don't eat within the first 20 or 30 minutes. Okay, so now let's add coffee on top of that. And I want you to hear me out. I'm not saying that you don't need to drink coffee, because if I've learned anything in the last 10 to 12 years that I have been learning more about integrative health, learning more about health in general, working with clients, it's that you guys love your coffee for the most part. I get there are some people that don't like coffee or have stopped drinking it for whatever reason. But most of you are like, whatever you do, just don't take away my coffee. So hear me out. I'm not taking away your coffee. But I just want you to know what happens when that morning, your body's searching for energy. You don't really necessarily give it food within, the 30 minute to an hour time frame. Okay, starting that stress cycle process, increasing the stress hormones so that it can produce its own energy. That's going on. Now, throw coffee on top of that, which already is going to kind of intensify those adrenaline, epinephrine, cortisol hormones that your body is producing to produce its own energy. It's only going to intensify that. And so I think you can probably figure out without me having to tell you too much of why that wouldn't be a great idea. That's a lot of times why people can feel jittery. They can even have, energy fluctuations. This wreaks havoc on your blood sugar, like absolute havoc. This is why a lot of people have even anxiety related symptoms can be kind of linked back to blood sugar issues. And so you can see why drinking coffee on an empty stomach without any food to sort of blunt the effects that if your body has dumped some stress hormones in there, maybe you jumped out of bed and you have to get ready really fast. Like, you can pretty much guarantee your body's already humming with these hormones, with these stress hormones. So what happens when we should eat within about 30 minutes to an hour after we wake, preferably, I should say 30 minutes, to blunt that effect, right? So that we can get that good protein, carbs, fat, a little bit of fiber in our system so that our body doesn't have to continually try to make its own energy. And it also blunts the effect of any stress hormones that we already have in our system. And so I want you to also know, like, this process is normal, right? Like, even if we eat within 30 minutes, our body probably still has a little bit of this stress hormone in our system, because that's normal, right? That's a normal process our body goes through to get us up, get us going. Hopefully it's not excess of those. However, that's normal. But our body is waiting for that food, right? It's like, okay, I'm going about my normal activity. Like, okay, this is normal to have some of these stress hormones in our body to kind of get going, get ready. Our cortisol should be higher in the morning. However, we need that food to blunt the negative effects that cortisol can have. Cortisol has some positive effects, right? It's useful. Our body makes it, and God put it there because it's useful. However, we don't want to have those effects exacerbated. And that's exactly what happens when we don't eat. And also we dump coffee on top of that. So Why not have coffee on an empty stomach? Why is that no good? Because it intensifies the effects of these stress hormones, which then throws our blood sugar out of balance and a lot of other things out of balance, right? And so how should we have our coffee? Please still enjoy your coffee. That's something that I want you to continue to have pleasure in. However, enjoy it with your breakfast or after your breakfast. Don't enjoy it on an empty stomach, because your body is not really going to enjoy it on an empty stomach for the reasons that I've already mentioned. So that is why you should not drink coffee on an empty stomach. Drink it with a meal, with your breakfast, or after. And so I want to take a few minutes also to just talk about what kind of coffee you're drinking. This could definitely be a whole nother episode. However, I don't want to kind of skim over this because it really does matter. So many coffees on the market now contain anything from pesticides to mold to just a variety of things. Those are the two primary things that a lot of coffee does contain. So I want to tell you about my favorite coffee in case you're looking for a new coffee, or maybe you're like, I never really thought about my coffee could have some of these things in there. So I really love something called King coffee. That's King, King coffee. And this coffee is really special. I'm going to take a few minutes to tell you why. But in short, this coffee is not only free of mold and pesticides and all that, it's an organic coffee. It can actually help to eradicate your body of mold. It's like anti-mold, antibacterial, anti all these things that our body is trying to fight, right? It actually helps decrease inflammation. So I don't know any other coffee that can have those anti-effects. I do know coffee that is free of the things that I mentioned. Purity Coffee is a brand that a lot of people drink. There's nothing wrong with that. However, whenever I'm always looking to optimize what I bring into my home and what I consume, like as far as food or supplements or different things like that, this coffee actually has benefits to it that other coffees don't have. And so I just wanted to share that with you in case you want to try that. I must say though, I have seen clients switch to King coffee and have positive benefits from it, right? A lot of times we want to switch something because we don't want the negative benefits. Not only do they not have the negative benefits, they also have positive benefits from the coffee, especially if they're dealing with a lot of underlying infections. They have a lot of inflammation in their body, which a lot of people do, but especially the clients that come see me and want to really dig into their health, they do have a lot of inflammation going on. And so this coffee can actually help to decrease some of that inflammation. And I won't go into like why that is because I just want to keep this short. However, I am going to link a blog post that I have for you all about this coffee and how you can try some out for yourself. And you can also, of course, message me if you have any questions at all. I just wanted to mention it because I have been drinking this coffee for about a year now, and I drink it every day. I love it. So go check that out if that's something that interests you. I'm going to put the blog post. It'll be in the show notes and also in the description of this YouTube video. And just so you know, this podcast episode is actually also a YouTube video. So every podcast episode is also going to have a video version. It'll be on my YouTube channel, which will be linked in the podcast show notes. And then I'll also link the podcast in the YouTube description. So whatever way you like to consume content, it'll always be on both of those platforms. But thank you so much for joining me for the second episode. And in this little mini series that I have going on, Simple Swaps for your regular routine, join back in for the next episode and see another simple swap that you could make. See you on the next one. If this episode has served you in any way, I would love it if you'd share any aha moments or takeaways over on Instagram and tag me at Kari Coody. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button so we can continue to learn and grow together.